Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again, Mr. Fullerton.
Thank you, Senator.
Look, you will be no surprises that I want to continue to follow up the the discussions that we've had at previous estimates about the Albury rail line. So I'd just like to, for you to start with how you see the Albury rail service and the condition of the track to Albury currently going.
Thank you, Senator. I might start with the ballast rehabilitation program because that's a program you would be familiar with. We started that work in, I think it was December 2011, a 5-year program that concluded about 12 months ago. And the whole purpose, it was a $134 million program to bring the track up to a standard consistent with the rest of the network. And that program delivered the right results that we expected, and the track does perform now at a standard equivalent with the rest of the network. It's fair to say, and in terms of the ongoing maintenance of the track, that's part of our ongoing maintenance budget. It's fair to say that we had some additional speed restrictions that got put into place after the winter on that section of track, in addition to the track between Stockholm, Bingle and Parks because of the heavy winter conditions. But nonetheless, it's still performing at a level far better than it did 2 or 3 years ago at the worst of the track condition. But we're confident that we've got the track to a level that is good condition, and it's meeting all our KPIs, both in terms of our lease obligations and all our obligations under our track access agreements. I am aware that V-line performance did suffer a bit in November, December as a result of those speed restrictions. We've carried out some further work on the track. We've got further work planned in March of this year, a major shutdown to look at a variety of activities around bridge upgrades, level crossing upgrades, ballast repair, but also a lot of tamping work. So after that, we again will address some of those speed restrictions that are affecting V-line, and they amount to around about 10 minutes of time lost between Melbourne and Albury.
Last time we spoke, I understand there were about 8 to 10 sections of track that had speed restrictions on them. How many stretches of track are currently being speed restricted?
Look, I think there's about 6 or 7 particular sections of track, and they total, in terms of the speed restriction, to, as I said, about 10 minutes of time lost for the passenger services on that network. And a lot of those, the majority of those speed restrictions will be lifted after that March program of works.
I've been told by the local residents that there are currently 23 temporary speed restrictions in place compared with the 8 to 10 that were in place a year ago.
Oh, well, Senator, I need to take that on notice and to verify whether that's correct or not, but my advice is that the speed restrictions I'm referring to are around about 8 to 10 speed restrictions.
But okay, well, 8 to 10, so that's the same as we had. So you're saying 8 to 10, so about the same as what we had a year ago?
Oh, no. 12 months ago there was far less than that. As I said, there was some deterioration on track performance in October, November of last year with the rain, and I'm just referring to those speed restrictions that got applied as a result of that. So
can we expect to have speed restrictions every time it rains from now on? I thought the ballast rehabilitation program was meant to stop there being speed restrictions every time it rained.
No, look, across our whole network, 8,500 kilometres of network, our average track under speed restriction would be around about 2%, which is pretty much...
let's look at... I do want to focus on the Albury line.
Yes, and on the Melbourne to Albury line, it's about 3% of our track under speed restrictions. So the work that we will do in March will bring it back to overcome some of those speed restrictions and reduce that time loss on V-line services.
Okay. But so you still feel that the ballast rehabilitation program has been successful, despite the fact that the evidence that I have is that we've got double the number, or more than double the number of speed restrictions than we had?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always things you discover after the work's done, and we will deal with that. But the ballast rehabilitation program, if you look at the performance of the track over the last 5 years, you'll see how we've reduced temporary speed restrictions, how we've improved running time, how we've improved the track quality index that we measure, and all those statistics are on our website for the performance of that track between Melbourne to Sydney.
So that track quality information, I think last time we discussed about the measurements that you take and the data that you collect, and that isn't publicly available. Is that still the case?
No, we are required under the access undertaking to publish performance results for all our network. They're on our website. The December results, if you look at them, cover off track reliability, availability, temporary speed restrictions.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual measurements to that data to inform your assessment, so track ride measurements and other data that we've been told that you don't release those.
No, on our website we've got all that track data for the track between Melbourne to Sydney is on our website.
So that track ride measurements. And so the other raw data that you then use to perform your assessment as to whether the track is performing. So you are now saying that information is available.
That's on our website.
It's publicly available.
Our track performance statistics across the whole network, including Melbourne to Albury, is on our website, covering off those 5 categories I referred to. And it's graphed and it goes back quite a number of years, and I think if you look at those statistics, you'll see at the height of the problem on the Melbourne to Albury track, where we had poor performance when it came to train running reliability and track condition.
So, I mean, I've been told that there's data that the community have requested that hasn't been made available because such information is considered to be commercial, and so that's that raw data. So I'm confused. So is there such data that has been requested?
I'm not particularise the data?
I'm told there's... the information I've been told is that, and in fact that this committee has been confirmed in writing that they wouldn't be releasing the track ride measurements and other data which your organisation measures as part of the requirements to prove to the Victorian Government that you are compliant with your track access agreement to the North East Victorian tracks. The reason they gave that such information is commercial.
Well, I think you're referring there, Senator, to the lease requirements that we have in place with the Victorian Government. That information is not published.
But she's identified it as track ride data. Is there such a data set called track ride data?
No. Under the access agreements with our rail operators, that information is published on our website and covered up all the categories I referred to.
Mr. Fulton, don't get off track here. Yeah. You've indicated there is no set of data called track
ride quality
data. So
we have a track quality index.
Yes, no, but that's an index that uses data. So I'm talking about that raw data that I presume you then use to create the index. So is there raw data that you don't release to the public?
That's right. We have this data that we collect to generate those KPIs.
Yes, so that data that you collect, not the KPIs.
No, we don't release that. No, we don't release that data.
So why don't you release that data?
Because that data is used to generate those KPIs to meet our lease obligations, and our lease obligations are well and truly met in terms of the performance centre.
Yes, but that raw data that you collect, the track ride measurements and other raw data,
it is highly technical data that actually is under our accreditation. We collect condition data off the AK condition card, which is very complex data that is used to generate the quality index that we are required to report under the terms of our lease.
Yes, but given that we have an ongoing situation where we've got dispute about the condition of the track, you know, you're saying there are only 6 stretches of track, other people are telling me that there's 23. It's in the interest of transparency and accountability. I can't see why that raw data, even if it is complex data, there are lots of people in the community who are capable of interrogating complex data, why that data needs to be commercial, why it's considered commercial.
It is part of our lease arrangements with the Victorian Government, and as I said, the performance of the track in accordance with those leases is well and truly meets all the performance data for the track.
I hear you saying that, but I cannot understand, and the community can't understand, why that raw data, which determines the quality of the track, why that needs to be confidential.
Well, it's maintenance data that we collect through our monitoring.
Okay, great. So why does it need to be confidential?
We use that data to collect.
Yes, but why does it need to be confidential?
Well, I think it's complex data that's used to collect.
Why does it need to be confidential? It's complex. But that doesn't mean it has to be confidential.
I think the important thing is to make sure whatever we communicate with the community on what we're doing to get the track up to the performance, and that data is complex data that's generated.
But that doesn't give that's not an answer as to why that data should be confidential. It's complex, yes, but there are people that are capable of interrogating complex data.
Yeah. Well, we think...
I think it's a matter of your reputation in the community, because from the community who, they're talking to me and they are concerned that you are hiding data. They are concerned that your assessment of the track, yes, it meets standards that you have determined with the Victorian government, but it doesn't meet the community standards. And we've got, 23 temporary speed restrictions. We've got ongoing, really slow, inefficient services. And what that means is the community are being adversely affected.
No, well, I think, Senator, when you have a look at the performance of the track and the ballast rehabilitation program that we implement over 5 years, there's been substantial improvement in the performance. And the statistics show that.
Will you take on notice whether you could consider making that raw data available, given that you haven't been able to provide us with a good reason as to why it should be confidential?
I will, Senator.
Thank you.
Have you got much more?
I've got, two more areas, so...
Yep.
You said 10 minutes.
Well, I'm just trying to make it fair for each of those who come and go rather than those of us who are here permanently, so... Do you think it's suitable to intervene now if you've got a considerable period of time more? Or?
I've probably got another, well, it depends on the answers I get, but probably another 5 minutes or so.
Right, and what time do you need to be gone?
I need to be gone at 12, so...
Right, so let's just try and interpose Senator Hinch, let him come and go, because I know how difficult it is crossbench trying to spread yourself.
Mr Fullerton, when did the ARTC take over the Wodonga-Melbourne line?
In my recollection, Senator, was in 1998.
Okay. And that was a 45-year lease?
No, the original lease, I think, was 15 plus 15, but in 2000 and... I need to
it was
check
extended,
that.
yeah.
It was extended to 45
total
years.
45 years.
Which included, I think it was in 2008, it goes to 2059, I think, the lease, and that included the take-up of the Western Track in Victoria as well.
Why isn't that lease on your website? The details of the lease?
Because that's the commercial arrangement between us and the Victorian government.
But the New South Wales lease is on your website?
Well, that's a matter between us and the Victorian government, and look, that's something that I'd, if we published it, we'd have to talk to them about that lease.
So if the Victorian government agreed to release it, you would have the objections?
We wouldn't have any problem at all.
Right. In October 2014 at an estimates hearing, you said it'd be up to the same standards as the rest of the ARTC, and you just said before, you said it's almost the standard of the rest of the network, and you feel quite proud of that.
Yes.
Yeah. I took the train from Melbourne to Wangaratta the other day, and as said the writer, we slowed down so many times. We slowed down, and locals said to me, "Yeah, there's a question I put to you." They claim that that road, that track now, the journey takes an hour longer than it did 10 years ago. Would you agree with that?
No, I would not.
Because it seemed to be a heck of a long time getting there.
No, Senator, I wouldn't believe it took that extra time. I don't think it's changed too much at all in terms of running time.
Yeah. You obviously make a lot of money out of freight. Freight's a big deal for you, isn't it? All right?
Freight's the bulk of our business, that's true.
Yeah, and passenger lines, you don't make much money out of the passenger service.
Oh, well, if you look at I think passenger revenue and our total access revenue is about 5%.
Mm-hmm. So would I be fair to say that you favour the freight trains, you favour them over passengers, quality and speed?
I think there are, certainly in New South Wales, there are train protocols that actually gives priority to passenger trains in train running.
In layman's terms, you talked about there being 7 or 8 mud hole problems at the moment, and Senator Rice said maybe she said 23. I've heard figures like hers from various people around in the Indi area, etc., etc. What would you say to the argument that the repair work you've done for all the mud holes, the sinkholes, etc., has been used with inferior materials, and you're going to have this problem for years more?
Oh, not at all. I mean, we have spent significant money upgrading that East Coast of Australia network. We spent, I think,
130 million or something.
No, well, I spent between Melbourne and Sydney, we've invested around over $1 billion on the track, and that's included all new rail for a lot of the track, all new concrete sleepers, new signalling systems. And I think the problem we're dealing with, which was well documented in the ballast rehabilitation program, is that we had legacy issues around ballast condition, and the whole ballast rehabilitation program was to remove the mud holes. And I think we started off on that part of certainly from Melbourne to Albury, about 13 kilometres of mud holes that we took out as part of that program to improve the ballast condition. On the Western Track in Victoria, we spent $20 million, in excess of $134 million, replacing substantial sections of the ballast. So that whole ballast rehabilitation program is to improve what has been historically old ballast and get the mud out of it, get the particles out of the ballast, as well as putting additional new ballast into the corridor, and also improve the drainage systems along the whole network, so that when it does rain, the ballast can drain clear, and that water can get away from the track.
Except for the last rainy period.
One of the arguments that being put forward is, and I've forgotten the exact term for it, when mud comes up, like an earthquake in Christchurch, the mud comes up and it solidifies and becomes like concrete. The argument is that what you're trying to do there from Melbourne to Albury Wodonga, that stuff's coming up, it's solidifying into concrete, and there's no spring in it. So it means that, especially the older rolling stock, it's damaging the carriages, it's damaging the trains. Is that a fair comment?
Well, look, I think you need to. Look, I think the ballast, ballast over time wears because of train loads going across, and so ballast tends to break down and becomes powder, generates from ballast as it fails over time, and then also you get fouling of ballast through dirt and mud that can get washed into the ballast. So it is a common circumstance that applies to all track all over the world, and that is why on a regular basis you have ballast, shoulder ballast cleaning, full ballast cleaning. So you actually run the ballast through a separation process to get rid of the dirt, and you can reclaim a lot of the ballast and put that back into the track, and you also top up with fresh ballast. So, one of the biggest maintenance tasks of track anywhere in the world is to keep ballast clean, self-draining, and to replace and tamp the track in an ongoing basis, because heavy trains running over the track as part of the process will denigrate the ballast, and it needs to be maintained under a continuous maintenance program.
Can you explain to me why are we getting these complaints? Senator Rice is getting them, I'm getting them from people. The locals, your name, sorry to use the expression, your name is mud, like the mud holes, because they claim the trains are going slower, they're slowing down more often, they have to get there, and they have this feeling that freight is God and passengers are treated like secondary citizens.
Well, I'm disappointed they feel that way, but I think we treat all our customers equally. They have, on the east coast of Australia, passenger services in that corridor. When you look at Melbourne to Brisbane, makes up about 15% of our revenue. We earn about $100 million of access revenue between Melbourne and Brisbane, and the bulk of that revenue is used to go back into the maintenance and operations of the railway, as well as supporting our ongoing our capital program to upgrade where we need to. So, passenger is an important part of our business. We have contracts with our passengers that demand us to provide services to them in accordance with those access contracts, as we do have with the freight network. So, we treat all our customers equally, and we have a maintenance program to make sure that we can deliver our obligations underneath those access contracts and in accordance with the lease.
Speaking of the lease, one final question. If I can get the Victorian Government to release details of that lease to put it public, would you accept, like the New South Wales Government has agreed to have theirs on your website?
Subject to making sure there's nothing in there confidential, but we don't have a real problem with releasing that document.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator McCarthy, Chair, has questions.
Well, Senator Rice said...
Now, geez,
I gave
Sullivan, this is really stretching our friendship, this one.
Well, let me just put my case.
I don't mind seceding because Senator Rice has to go. She says 10 minutes, then goes into 20.
Yeah.
We're waiting patiently.
I've had 10.
Which you said you only wanted 10.
Can I just make this point? It really doesn't matter. We're here till the end of the interrogation of these officials on this subject. and I've tried to give, with visiting crossbench centres, a chance to get their work done and gone. We're here permanently, except for Senator Rice has put us on notice to go.
See, that's nice. I mean, I've always gone the full-time members.
Yeah, but you're a mean person, and I've got a much softer spirit. Let's give Senator Rice 5 minutes, and
Extra
I'll
5,
watch
okay.
the clock.
Watch the clock. All right. So, Mr. Fullerton, in terms of going back to the data that you say you won't release because it's commercial, there isn't any exchange of money between yourself and the Victorian government relating to, basically you have an agreement with them to maintain the track at a suitable standard.
Yes, that's what we call the lease document.
That's right.
Terms and conditions of the lease document.
That's right. And so there isn't any financial exchange as part of that, is there?
It's a peppercorn rent type of arrangement.
Yes. So how can it be commercial? Isn't it just providing information that's in the public interest?
It is commercial from our perspective because, as you're aware, Senator, we're a government business enterprise that has to pay its way. Therefore, in maintaining the revenues that we earn on our track, we have to wisely use those to maintain the track.
Yes.
And we don't receive any recurrent funding from government.
No, but the basic measurements that you take in terms of the quality of the track, I cannot see how they can be seen as commercial. I mean, because it's not revealing information about how much money you are paying to, or you are expending to maintain the track. How can they be seen as commercial?
Well, I think I've just indicated to Senator that we can, if the Victorian government's happy to release that document, we would be too.
But would that include releasing the basic track data, the quality of the track data?
Well,
not just the lease.
The lease describes the details around the obligations.
Right. Okay. So you would release that data if the Victorian government was agreed to have the lease made public.
Yeah, we will release. In fact, we will release the lease document, which includes the performance requirements that are placed on us in terms of the lease. And
you would then release the data that you measure.
No, no, that's a separate issue, Senator.
I think Mr. Fulton's taken on notice his view on the data, Senator. He'll come back to you on that one.
Okay. Do you see, Inland Rail is proposed to use this stretch of track. Given the experience that you've had over the last winter of the ballast rehabilitation program not succeeding in maintaining a minimum number of speed restrictions, do you see that you're going to have to do extra work on it before Inland Rail takes over?
Well, there is a program, excuse me, Senator, a program that works in relation to the Parks to Melbourne section, which will primarily involve clearance work to allow double stacking. But, other than increasing the level of maintenance, subject once Inland Rail starts, to deal with the additional tonnes and volume, it's proportional to how many tonnes are carried across the track. We don't think there's a lot more to be spent, but we are doing some further work to make sure that's the case. But, I think the best indicator for that corridor from a freight perspective is that, we've seen additional freight coming back to rail more recently because of the performance on the corridor, to Melbourne to Brisbane. We've seen Woolworths come back to rail. Yeah, a month or so ago, we saw SCT have started running trains between Melbourne and Brisbane.
Well, let's cut to the chase. I've got about 1 minute left, Mr. Fullerton. So your current position is that you think that the work you've done on that track is going to be sufficient, or will you need to do further work in order to cope with the increasing rate of freight
that's
that
further
we're using
work.
that track?
We're having a look at that at the moment as we look at the works requirement. I mean, any work that it may be that you could do some additional work because you're going to get maintenance savings ongoing because of that work. And that's something we'll certainly look at in terms of some of the activities. But look, we're confident about the condition of the track to support Inland Rail operations as it is today, as we are confident about how it supports business on the corridor now.
One final question in general about sort of the quality of freight rail, and that's the heat restrictions in the Murray Basin, with the not being able to use the rail tracks if the temperature goes over 30 degrees. Does the ARTC have a view on those restrictions having been put in place?
Well, Senator, as you're aware, that's not our track. Yes. But I think it is. But
it's
regional,
connected because
it is
in terms of
it is regional track, and obviously because it's timber sleepered, it's not to a mainline standard. There will be required on occasion to apply heat restrictions. That doesn't apply on our track, primarily at those levels, primarily because it's concrete re-sleepered, it's concrete sleepers, and it's heavy-duty rail.
So have you got a view as to what it says about the need for further investment in that freight rail network?
No, I'm not really in a position to comment on that regional network, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Senator Rice. Senator Steele.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Your turn.